Well, all right, welcome back to another episode of Generation to Generation, Bridging the Gap with Rex and Eva. And Eva's got the night off, so this is a solo dad episode. Eva is teens. And so we ended the last episode. She is still editing that, by the way, but I think she titled that How to Beat the Comparison Game. And we mentioned that we were probably going to come back and do part 2. And really not a lot to say about that. I think we covered the topic fairly adequately in that first part. But we were talking about, the blame game, not the blame game, the comparison game. And one of the rules that I've heard over the years is just don't play it, because when you compare yourself to other people, you're always going to compare your worst with their best, and you cannot win that game. It's impossible. And then the other thing I've heard, which I think is really good, is comparison is the thief of joy. It'll steal your joy if you are constantly looking at other people, at their situation, their parameters, and it's just unfair. It's unfair to you. It's unfair to the other person, because we don't know the journey that each one of us as individuals are on. And so it's just difficult to compare, again, those journeys, our station in life, where we are in our age, in our career track, in our education, whatever the case is. But again, we live in a very competitive culture, full of achievement, full of metrics, and full of performance-based incentives. And so because of that, it's kind of natural to compare, to try to figure out where we stand, but we just have to be extremely careful with that we don't let the comparison become our identity. And I think that's one of the big issues in this discussion. I think we become very self-conscious anytime we begin to compare, and we begin to lose our identity, because we put our identity in the achievement, in the success, in the thing we're trying to accomplish, and we forget who we are as a person, which is the most important thing. What are the values that we hold dear? Who are we? What is our character? Those are the things that matter and identify who we are, as opposed to the things we're trying to achieve. But again, it still makes it difficult, because we just live in this very competitive culture. But I think when you're aware of it, it's easier to guard against it. I was reminded, as I was just thinking about putting this particular part together and maybe making some closing comments. In the Army, we had what was called a zero defect mentality. And that's a manufacturing term, but it actually came from the Pershing missile program in the early 1960s. They were trying to deliver the Pershing missile with zero defects. They were trying to cut the cost. They were trying to minimize the manufacturing mistakes that were being made in the missile program. So this concept was developed, and people have used it ever since. There's nothing wrong with the concept. A lot of businesses still use it. Hey, we want to provide an environment that produces zero defects. Well, that's an admirable goal for any enterprise, specifically a manufacturer. The Army, I remember, we had what was called a tactical nuke, which was an artillery unit that could deliver a smaller nuclear bomb on the battlefield. Well, those come with a set of controls and codes that have access. It requires 2 different people with a set of codes. And so in that particular program, it was known as zero defects. When you're talking about potentially launching any type of a nuclear weapon, regardless of how small or big it is, you better have some controls involved in that. You better have multiple people involved in it with safeguards, and you better have a zero defect. So the concept is extremely applicable. It's extremely relevant, but we do have to be careful that we don't adopt a zero defect mentality in our personal lives, because we're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to disappoint each other. I am going to disappoint Eva as a dad sometimes. I'm not going to come through whatever it might be. And it's not that I intended to disappoint her, but sometimes you just don't get it across the finish line, whatever it is. So again, I think we have to guard against having this zero defect program, so to speak, and thinking that totally works in an industry and it's going to work at home. Well, not necessarily. So here's the kind of the thought I'd like to maybe leave with us. And by the way, this is so hard without Eva. I am sitting here. Yeah, I'm talking to the mic, but I'm sitting here by myself. And so half of my energy is gone. My partner, I'm not getting any feedback. So bear with me. Give me some grace. I'm trying to sound excited about the topic. And so here's my next thought. Instead of constantly comparing ourselves to others and feeling like we don't measure up, what if we could just learn to compete against ourselves? Now, I know that may sound like a very simple thought, but again, it's so simple, but it's hard to put into practice. In other words, if we are going to compete against ourselves, number one, we've got to know what our best is. What is my best? Number two, have I done my best? Number three, if I have done my best, well, how can I get better? There's got to be a way that I can improve my current performance in whatever task it happens to be. How can I get better? And then here's where I want to land this short episode is number 4. What is my attitude toward failure? There have been several books written, especially in recent years, about failure. One of my favorite ones is Failing Forward. That's a John Maxwell book. And John has always said that people learn much more from their failures than their success. Well, as I have grown older, I certainly believe that's true. He's the world's foremost leadership expert. But here's another thought. I am drawn to people. Even at my age, I am drawn to younger people that are willing to discuss their failures because I see a humility in them and a willingness to embrace personal growth that is attractive. Let me say that again. I am drawn to not only older people, but younger people who are willing to admit and discuss their failures because I see a level of humility that demonstrates their quest and their thirst for personal growth. It's extremely attractive in any leader. And I look for leaders that are that way because, again, as an older leader, I am just conscious of the fact I've had a lot of great achievements in my life, and I'm grateful for all of those. I can't think of a one that I did by myself. Every achievement I've ever had came with a team and came with people that we basically did that together. I don't know. The one just popped up in my head. I was an Eagle Scout at age 13. And you can say, well, that was a personal achievement. Well, no, not really. Yes, I had to be the one to go through the rank structure and to make the list and follow the list of all the tasks that were required from tenderfoot to second class to first class to star to life to Eagle. Yes, I had to follow the plan, but there were people along the way that had to help me accomplish the task. They had to help train me. They had to help me look at a specific task in a different viewpoint. So even though I am the one that has an Eagle Scout badge, I didn't accomplish that on my own. And I can't think of another single thing that I have done that I can say, yep, I did that. Rex did that. No, you didn't. You had a team. You had people that helped you. And so along the way, as I look at all the achievements, as meaningful as they are and the memories that they bring back, the things that I tend to talk most about at this point in my life are my failures, my mistakes, the things that I could have done better, the things that I didn't view quite properly. And so here's some closing thoughts that I'd like to just throw out. And there's really just 3 of them, in this question of, hey, how do I get better if I've done my best? Well, that's great, but I want to get better. And again, what is my attitude toward failure or my mistakes, I would like to wrap it up with three questions that I personally ask myself. And here's the first one. If I had it to do over again at this stage in my life, number one, I think I would ask more questions of people that were older than me. And I'm still trying to put that into practice. Why? Because I have never been 70 before. So I'm looking at people that are in their 70s now. I'm looking at their transition to, in some cases, some physical challenges. They're starting to maybe hurt for the first time in their life. They're starting to maybe slow down a little bit. Not all of them, some of them are starting to acknowledge that maybe they don't think as quickly. Doesn't mean they don't think clearly, but they may not think as quickly. Well, I'm looking at that because guess what? I am growing older, so I want to know what that's like, but I'm also interested in their life experience. And I think this is a mistake that younger people make. And again, I was younger once and I made the mistake. Don't shy away from engaging people that are older than you are, because they're willing, and they're not only willing to share their experience, they're almost waiting for you to ask them. I know that one of the things that really confounds me is when I have the chance to talk to a group of, let's just say, younger people, whether it's in a classroom setting, whether it's in a small group setting, whether it's a casual setting, maybe in a lobby or lunch, or maybe even after a church service. One of the things that always amazes me after a great conversation is the lack of questions. As an older person with a lifetime of experience and insight that I am more than willing to provide for free, I always walk away from most of these conversations going, wow, I cannot believe they did not ask one single question. So and again, hey, it's not an admonition, it's a recommendation, young folks. And who do I define as young people? Anybody younger than me. Ask me questions. I would love to give you an answer. And hey, the harder they are, the more I embrace those. And I think I would say that to myself as a younger person. Not only did I not ask enough questions of older people, I did not ask enough hard questions because I didn't want to put them on the spot. I didn't want to be disrespectful. Hey, you're not young people. You're not being disrespectful. Ask us what your question is, because we want to help, and we want to help you navigate some pitfalls that we could potentially help. So anyway, that's number one. If I had to go back as a younger person, I would ask more questions of the people older than me. And again, those questions revolve around, hey, what's my attitude toward failure or not? I don't know why people are averse to the word failure. Hey, we fail. I love it in the Army. It was a go, pass. You either got to go on a particular task or you got a no-go. That's actually what it was, a go or no-go. Well, another term for no-go, hey, soldier, you failed at this particular task. Go over to remedial training. We're going to get you spun up, so to speak, on this particular task. Then we're going to run through it again until you can do it. It used to be called task, condition, standard on everything we did in the Army. And so you had to learn how to do it either on a go or a no-go basis. Well, again, that's a nice word for no-go, is a nice word for failure. Sometimes we just fail. We have to get retrained. Enough on that one. Okay. I think number two, I would have taken more risk, and I would have asked myself, I would have challenged my own views and my own perspectives. And I've got a recent one that I can give as an example. Because the Army sent me to Hawaii right out of the gate, most of my time was spent in a very warm weather place for the first 4 years of my Army assignment. Well, and I loved it, but that unit traveled a lot. So we went to Korea, we went to Australia, went to Thailand, Japan, Malaysia, a lot of different places in the Pacific. The coldest I've ever been in my life was in Korea in February, and I never wanted to experience that again. And when we went back to Hawaii, it was such a drastic change from that cold weather experience in Korea. I just kind of made what some people will recognize as an internal vow. I made this internal vow. I'm like, man, I am never going to be cold again. I'm never going to voluntarily go to a cold weather place. If it's got cold in it, I am done. Don't want anything to do with it. Well, that was a mistake because it skewed my perspective of what cold weather is and what's available. Specifically, Colorado. I have fallen in love with winter sport. I've fallen in love with just the year-round weather and everything that's available in the state of Colorado. We got snow skiing, snowmobiles, we've got trout fishing, we've got hiking to the 14-footers, the what they call the 14,000 elevation mountain peaks that they have. They call them 14ers, not 14-footers, but 14ers, and it's kind of a club. Hey, have you done all the 14ers in Colorado? And I'm going to do, that's on my bucket list for 2025. I always do something new that I've never tried before, that I've never done physically, because I want to continue to challenge myself. And so for 2025, I've already put it out there. I'm going to climb my first 14er in Colorado. But again, the point is I intentionally stayed away from states like Colorado for years because of my Hawaii experience. Hey, I want to be in the tropics. I want to be warm. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I certainly don't want to be cold. Stay away from places like Colorado. Wrong. Colorado is amazing, and it's a different kind of cold. It's a dry cold, and I had to go out and experience that. And what it taught me was, oh my goodness, don't be so close-minded that you skew your perception of different places, things, activities, experiences, ideals. Don't do that. So that's number 2. Just be willing to take more risk and be willing to challenge your own perceptions and your own conclusions you've drawn about certain things. Challenge yourself. Hey, why do I think that way? What is my perception about that particular idea or that particular place? Challenge yourself, take more risks. That's number 2. And then number 3 and final, I would think more strategically. If I were talking to my younger self, I would think more strategically. Well, what do I mean by that? This is another Army example, but anyone that served in the military, especially at the officer level, you will immediately recognize that there are 3 levels of warfare. There's the strategic level, the operational level, and the tactical level. And the tactical level is the day-to-day fighting the battle. The strategic level is at the other end of the spectrum, and that is, hey, what is our strategy to win the war? However long the war is going to last, whether it's a year-long war, 4 years, 10 years, whatever it is, what is the strategy that we're going to put in place to fight all of these individual battles? So on one end of the spectrum, there's the strategic level. How are we going to do this? And then at the other end is the tactical level, the day-to-day fighting the battle. Well, let's put that in perspective of your life. You and I, we're going to fight battles every day, every week, every month, every year of our life. It is a series of battles. And I feel like I have fought the day-to-day battles, the challenges, the struggles, the obstacles, the problems, everything that's been presented. I feel like I have really been an expert, so to speak, at fighting the day-to-day battles. Where I have not been an expert, in my opinion, is that I could have been a little bit better at looking at my life from a more strategic level and spending more time in thinking about the next season and what does that look like. If you put it in terms of warfare, you can't just fight the current battle. You have to fight that one, but you have to be thinking about the next one. That's what makes a great coach. If you've got a baseball coach, he's not thinking about just the third inning. You may be in the third inning, but he's thinking about who could possibly pitch in the sixth inning, the seventh inning, eighth, ninth. He's thinking about the remainder of the game. He's got to be ahead. He's got to have a strategy. Same thing with a football coach. You're in the first quarter. You're actually fighting that battle, but a great coach, he's thinking about the second quarter. What are the adjustments we're going to make at halftime? What's going to be forced on us? And what is the second half going to look like? He's got all of those things that are going through his head. Well, our life is a lot like that. We can't just focus on the day to day. We've got to think about the next season that's coming. And again, as an older person, I personally think I could have done a better job at that in my own life. Am I disappointed with my life? Absolutely not. I am thrilled with the way that my life has turned out, the experiences I've had, the friends I've made, the relationships that we've built. I am thrilled with my life, and I'm blown away at how good it's been and the things that I've been able to experience. But there's a piece of me that thinks, some of those wrecks, the favor of God is a big piece of it and the blessing of God. But there are some things I feel like I actually just stumbled into. And I'm like, wow, you could have done a lot better job of thinking ahead of the next season and spending a little bit more time and effort in terms of, well, what do you want to get out of that season? And I'm in one of those now. I'm looking forward. Eva's about to go to college. Well, it's not that simple, okay? Your only child is turning 18 this week. She's going off to college at I'll start to say the end of this year, not the calendar year, but let's call it 9 more months. She's in our home full time, 9 more months, and then she's going to be off to college. Well, you can't stop there. I can't stop there, and Lisa can't stop there. We have to think about, hey, well, what does our life look like the next 4 years? Yeah, she's going to be off to college, but what are some of the things that we want to accomplish as empty nesters? Some of our listeners have probably been through that season, and you recognize that that is a season. It involves a transition, and it requires some detailed thought. What do I want that season to look like? And so I'm saying that from a perspective of some of the mistakes that I've made in my own life where I don't think I thought strategically. Well, hey, in this coming season, let's think strategically, and let's not just look at what's directly in front of us, but let's look 9 months down the road, a year down the road, 2, 3, 4, and what do we want that to look like, and what are the things that we need to put in place to make some of those, for lack of a better word, bucket list. I'm still working on some bucket list items, and with a bucket list, this is for free. You got to have 3 things that line up. You got to have health, you got to have money, and you got to have time. And unfortunately, for most people, those 3 elements never line up at the same time. Let me say it again. Money, time, and health. All 3 of those need to be present for you to maximize the things that are on your bucket list. And so my admonition there is for people that are older, like myself, hey, don't wait too late. I know there's a magical age out there. People talk about 70. Well, I think you've heard me say it before on previous episodes. Hey, don't make assumptions about what it's going to look like when you're 70. If there are things on your bucket list that you have the time, the health, and the money to do right now, I would suggest you do it now while those 3 things are present, because you can't guarantee what life is going to look like at 70, wherever you happen to be along that journey. So in closing, I cannot believe I sat here and talked basically to a microphone and to myself for 24 minutes. Let's wrap this up. Again, the big piece out of this particular episode that I would encourage you to walk away with is, in the comparison game, let's play it a different way. Let's play it against ourselves. Let's make sure that we're doing our very best. And when we've done our best, how do we get better? And then what's my attitude toward failure and not achieving what I thought I was going to accomplish? And then ask yourself these questions. Ask more questions of the people that are older than you. Take more risk. Evaluate yourself. Challenge yourself on what your misperceptions and your misconceptions may be about a particular event, place, thing, activity, whatever it is. And then number 3, think more strategically about the next season in your life. Okay, I hope that helped. And although Eva is not here, I am going to look at her just as if she were here. And I'm going to say, whatever happens, let's always be able to talk from generation to generation.
Hey, if you enjoyed our episode, make sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And leave a review because it helps people who don't know about us hear our message. And if you want to follow us on our socials, follow us at G2G_podcast on Instagram and Generation to Generation on Facebook.